Hi guys, my name is Jay and I'm an ESL instructor and curriculum developer at University of California, Irvine. I have been teaching English for about 10 years and 3 years I spent teaching English in Kazakhstan and a little bit over 7 years I've been teaching here in California. I actually do love teaching test prep classes, guys, even though a lot of students don't like them, but I find this experience to be rewarding for me as a teacher because it's a very goal-oriented task to pass a test and get a band scores that you want to in order to enroll to college or university, or sometimes even to move to a different country to live. So I hope with my knowledge and experience I have helping many students to pass this test that you'll find it useful for you as well. And just don't forget to pause, take notes, and practice as much as possible before taking your test. And I hope you really do enjoy the content that we are created for you. Enjoy the course, stay engaged, and don't forget to take the notes and practice. Have fun, guys, with preparing for the IELTS exam. Hi guys, in our today's lesson we are going to learn about IELTS writing section. IELTS writing has two different types of essays, and one of them is academic task 1 and the second one is independent task. Today we'll focus on learning about academic task 1. Academic task 1 has different graphics and we're going to learn about different graphics and different strategies and how to complete the section. In academic writing task 1, we'll be learning about different graphics such as charts, graphs, and tables. You'll be given only 20 minutes to complete IELTS academic task 1. And because your time is very limited, I suggest you to spend your time in the following order. In your step 1, you should plan your essay for 5 minutes. In step 2, write your essay for 12 minutes. And step 3, you should have at least 3 minutes to go back and revise your essay. Also remember that you have to write at least 150 words, and you definitely can write more words, but not less than that. So keep in mind, you have only 20 minutes and you need to write 150 words in the academic task 1. Before we begin learning about academic writing task 1, I would like to share with you a couple of important tips that can help you write better. First of all, remember, you need to use only the information provided in the task. Do not include outside information or your personal opinion. That means you cannot write down the numbers that you don't see on the graphic, and also you cannot write the phrases such as I believe, in my opinion, and so on. Also remember two different types of questions that can help you so much during your writing. So the first one is what is this graphic about? And the second question is, which are the most important details? Always try to ask yourself these two questions, and that will help you to stay focused and provide accurate information during your writing task. And now we are going to discuss what to do in order to receive the best score. First of all, you need to address all parts of the task. Then you have to make sure that you accurately summarize the information. So here, make sure you do not include any outside resources and only use information that is presented to you in the graphic. Make meaningful comparison. That means that you are only comparing the most important features. Sometimes you are presented with a lot of details, so you have to make sure that you are only using important features. Also use correct grammar, spelling, and punctuation, and writing complete sentences. So our complete sentences, as you remember, probably you studied in your grammar class, we have 4 different types of sentences such as simple, compound, complex, and compound complex sentences. In order to get a better score, you have to make sure you have one of each at least. And try to end your paragraph with a brief overview of the information. So for example, if you're writing your body paragraphs and you have only one body paragraph or 2, try to end them with a brief overview of each paragraph and what you're presenting in that body paragraph. And the most important thing to keep in mind is that you need to write in your own words. Do not copy exact same sentences, same words from the task. Try to paraphrase them, and if you are feeling that you can write them in your own words, then you can write the same idea using different words. So these are important things to keep in mind in order to get a best score. And in the following slides, we'll be learning our different steps, how to write academic task 1. And now we are going to talk about our important step 1, which is planning. And I know, guys, you do not like planning. Not all of you, but most of you, I'm sure of that, because I've been teaching IELTS and other classes for a long time, writing classes, and I always notice that students do not like planning. But trust me, planning is very important, and you have to spend actually about 5 to 7 minutes. Seems like a lot, but you know, that will ensure that you are well prepared for your writing. When you have great information, when you have a great plan, and you understand the graphic, trust me, it's going to be so much easier to write for you. So, plan your essay for about 5 to 7 minutes. Read your prompt really carefully, what is being asked from you, and analyze your graphic. That will ensure that you include the most important details from the graphic. And remember, you have to make sure you identify what kind of graphic you have. So there are different types of graphics. As I mentioned before, you might have a bar chart, line graph, pie chart, table, or diagram. So identify what kind of type of graphic you have, then try to analyze what kind of changes happened in the graphic, and after that begin writing. So I'll be teaching you how to make a plan and how to create your outline, and then how to write every single paragraph of the essay. But you should keep in mind that you need to use at least 5 minutes for this process for your step 1. The graphic we're going to review is a bar chart. So here we have a topic. The bar graph below shows the number of tourists visiting 2 cities by season. So this is a topic, and the main idea of the essay you're going to write about. So, and here we have also requirement that will always ask you to do the same thing, to summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparison where relevant. So you have to make sure you summarize the most important information in the graphic you see. So here we have a bar chart, and you're only going to select and report the most important details and make comparison between them. So here, for example, we have number of tourists by season, and we have 2 cities. As we found out from reading this topic, Dover and Troy, we have numbers. So these numbers represent number of people who are coming to these 2 cities by season, and we have 4 different seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. As you see, the most popular time to travel to Dover, it's a winter time, and the most popular time to travel to Troy, it's a summertime. And for example, in winter, 25,000 people come to Dover, and in the summer, it's a little bit over 20,000. So you have to make sure when you're writing your essay, you're only using the numbers and details you have on this graphic. So do not include any outside information, and work with the graphic and information you have in front of you. And now we are going to discuss our graphic type 2, which is a pie chart. And as you see on the slide, we have 2 different pie charts that represent different years, 2005 and 2015. So before analyzing your pie chart, make sure you read your topic carefully and understand what the main idea of these pie charts. So the topic always contains the most important details, so make sure you read it. Let's take a look now, and I'll read it. The pie charts below shows a form of transportation to work normally used by workers in a particular city. So now let's go back to our pie charts. So you see Rockingham, it's our title, and transportation. So it means it's about transportation in 2005 and 2015. And Rockingham represents the name of the city where it happens. So when they say a particular city, so that means this is a particular city, Rockingham. And as you see, in 2005, car was the most popular form of transportation. It had 50%. However, in 2015, it decreased in number, and now we have 35% in 2015. So for example, walking was 5%, and it seems that it remains the same in 2015. And bus, let's see, bus is also the same. And carpool has become, let's see, it used to be 25% and now it's 20%. So it decreased in 2015. So the most important thing to do when you have this kind of task, read your topic very carefully, understand the main idea, and then start analyzing your charts, your graphics. Alright guys, so now we're going to discuss our third graphic, which is a line graph, and I'm sure you know why the name is a line graph. Well, I'm gonna tell you anyways. It's called line graph because of the lines you see in this graphic, and these lines, they actually represent different places. So let's take a look at our topic and you'll have a better idea. So I'm going to read it. The line graph below shows a number of single-family homes constructed in the United States by region over a period of 6 years. So now you have a little bit better idea, and you also know that all this happened in the United States. So let's take a look. We have our title. Always make sure you read it. New residential construction. We have different years from 2006 until 2012. And we have these numbers. So as you see, these numbers represent single family homes. And your task is exactly the same that I explained to you earlier to do, to summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparison where relevant. So you are going to compare and you are going to discuss the most important details in this graphic. So for example, highest number, lowest number. You can also compare some, for example, some lines, and as you see, like two bottom lines are quite similar, and one of them is actually in 2010. Line number 2 from the bottom, it's a Midwest. It remains the same from 2010 to 2012. So I think this is important information, and that kind of information you can include in your essay. So that's what we have, guys, for our line graph. And here we have our last graphic, which is a table chart, and you have to do exactly the same things that we discussed earlier, but let's review a little bit about this type of graphic. So we have our topic that states the following. The table below gives information about independent films in the UK. Make sure you read that, and then next go ahead and try to identify the most important details and analyze the graphic. So here we have the title, Independent Films Released in the UK and Republic of Ireland by Genre 2012. So after reading this title, you get a little bit more information, as you see. So here we have Republic of Ireland as well. It's not only UK. So that's a very good information. And also that everything happened, this information that they provided is based on 2012. So as you see, we have total number, we have different genres, and we have, for example, comedy, drama, documentary. If you don't know some words, don't worry about that. And as long as you understand the information and you're reporting the most important details, so that's all that matters. So don't worry about words or things that you're not sure about. Your job is to understand the numbers, to understand the graphic, and only provide important details. Write an essay about that. So we have number of releases, percentage of all releases, and percentage of income from ticket sale. So here focus on the biggest number, lowest number, similar number, and maybe second biggest number. So that's all we have for our graphics, guys. Just make sure you practice a lot before taking your test. And as you see, all of them are very similar. You have to do exactly the same task, and you just need to practice, and whichever graphic you are going to get, you are going to do great with a lot of practice. And now we are going to discuss how to determine the topic. In task 1, you'll be asked to write a short essay which consists of 150 words, if you remember. And here you need to summarize the information on the graphic by selecting and reporting the main features and comparing them. In order to identify the main details of the graphic, first you need to read the task and then recognize the type of graphic you have. If you remember, we have 4 different types of graphics, such as line graph, bar chart, pie chart, and table graph. Then secondly, you have to read the title of the graphic and scan the features. Always make sure you ask yourself a couple of questions that contain who, what, where, and when. It will make sure you focus your thoughts and you are staying focused throughout the writing process. Then take notes for task, type of graphic, title of graphic, features who did it, what happened, when it happened, and where it happened. Using these details, now you can write your topic sentence. And here we have our example about the previous slide for determining the topic. As you see, we have a prompt that states the following. The graph below shows the average daily sales of selected food items at the Vista Cafe by season, and we have the same requirement that we discussed earlier. So as you see, you have a bar chart and you have a lot of details such as numbers and different food items. So when you're determining the topic, you have to keep in mind a couple of questions: what happened, when it happened, and the title and type of graph. So by finding these type of answers and keeping them in mind, that will be easier for you to write a topic sentence. So for example, here I have a graphic type bar graph, title average daily sales by number of servings, and I have what happened, average daily sales, when, it's winter and summer, and based on the information I have, now I have my topic sentence. The average number of servings of certain food items sold daily in the winter and in the summer. So that's how I can write my topic sentence, by determining the information I have on the graphic. And now on the slide you can see how you can use your bar graph notes to create your own topic sentence. As you remember, we had notes about graphic type, which was bar graph. Our title was average daily sales by number of servings, and topic was the average daily sales of selected food items in winter and summer. When you're writing your topic sentence, try to use the information you have, the notes that you have, and you determined your topic with, and you can write something like this. The bar graph shows how many servings of certain food items sold on average every day in 2 different seasons at the Vista Cafe. As you see, I did not copy exact phrases that I had in my prompt, and I use my own words, but also the information that was provided. Also, what you can do is paraphrase some words from the prompt by using different synonyms or some words that have the same ideas. So as long as you do not copy exactly the same words, exactly the same phrases, you should be okay. And now we are going to discuss our step 2. It's a writing process. After you plan, you are ready to write. You'll be using your notes that we discussed earlier, how to determine the topic, and your topic sentence that you wrote earlier. Then you'll spend about 12 minutes to write a short 3 or 4 paragraph essay. Your essay will consist of short introduction, 1 or 2 short body paragraphs, and a short conclusion. So your goal should be to write an introduction that has 2 sentences and consists of topic sentence that summarizes the information in the graphic, and second sentence should be a general statement about the relationship of the data you have. Then you'll have 1 or 2 body paragraphs. It really depends on your style of writing and how you like to explain your ideas that you have on the graphic, the information you have in the graphic. Then you'll have a topic sentence in each body paragraph, and then details and comparisons that support your topic sentence. And your conclusion can be 1 to 2 sentences that will include the most important changes that happen throughout the graphic. So in the following slides, we'll be discussing how to write every paragraph of the essay, and you'll have a better idea how to do it. And now we're going to discuss how to write our introduction. I think for a lot of students, it's really hard to begin, and I used to be one of those students too that didn't know how to begin the essay. So don't worry about that too much and just try to follow this really easy strategy. So remember that your introduction tells what you'll write about, and in your introduction, you need to tell the reader what you will summarize and compare. So the easiest way to do that, because you don't have too much time during your IELTS exam, paraphrase your first sentence. So the first sentence tells what the graphic is about. If it's difficult for you, so you can just paraphrase a couple of words from your prompt and write synonyms instead of that. Just you have to make sure you do not copy every single word from the prompt, from the topic you have in the IELTS exam. Then second sentence, in the second sentence, you need to tell what you will compare. So for example, average number of sales of each item and how you will compare them, if they change with the season, and so on. So the first sentence tells what the graphic is about. So you paraphrase a couple of words, like 2 to 3. Instead of show, for example, you can write down demonstrate, or you can write down depict, and so on. And for the second sentence, you just need to tell what happened from the beginning until the end. So do not provide specific information, examples, numbers in your introduction. You will only include these two sentences. And now I have an example prompt for you guys so you'll have a better idea what I was trying to explain to you in the previous slide. So as you see, we have example prompt and we have our topics. The graph below shows the average daily sales of selected food items at the Vista Cafe by season. And as usual, you are being asked to summarize the information, report the main features, and make comparison. So as you see, first sentence, it's my paraphrase. So what I did was just changing a couple of words. So for example, instead of saying the graph below, I said the bar chart below. Instead of saying shows, I wrote down demonstrates the average daily sales of, instead of selected food items, I said certain food items at the Vista Cafe in different times of the year. So that was instead of by season. So as you see, I kept the same idea, but I just changed a couple of words. It doesn't have to be full words just like I wrote down in here, but it can be only 2 or 3 words as long as you're not copying exactly the same words from the prompt. Second sentence, you see, it shows the overall trend. It can be seen that the average number of sales of each item changed with the season. It's not very specific. What I did was just wrote down changed. It's a very general idea, and the specific details you'll be providing in your body paragraph. So these two sentences are my introduction, and that's exactly what you need to do to save your time during IELTS. In this slide, we're going to discuss how to express the main idea of each body paragraph. When you planned your essay, you made notes that you can use to compare and give details. Now, using these notes, you are going to write your body paragraphs of your essay. You'll write one paragraph about each comparison. So remember, you need to write the main idea in each body paragraph. So that's your first sentence of each body paragraph. Begin each paragraph with a main idea that summarizes a comparison you are making. So below we have two main ideas, each with a focus comparison. So for example, comparison for paragraph 1 is the average daily sales of selected food items in winter, and comparison for paragraph 2 is the average daily sales of selected food items in summer, which means when you are going to write your body paragraphs, your first body paragraph is going to be only about winter time, and your body paragraph 2 is going to be summertime. So you have to compare them. So what I would suggest you to do is in your body paragraph 1 to write about only winter period of time and discuss highest number, lowest number, etc. And in body paragraph 2, compare your summer to winter and how in summer maybe some certain items were more popular than the others. So you'll compare summer to winter in your body paragraph 2. And these are our main ideas for body paragraphs. And now we're going to review one of the most important parts of the essay, supporting details. The main idea of each body paragraph is always followed by details that support it. A lot of times you can see supporting details as our examples after the main idea. Try to use your own notes about details to write statements that support the main idea. On the following slide, look at how the notes for the first comparison on the graphic have been turned into the supporting details of a paragraph. And now we are going to discuss how to put the main idea and details in one paragraph. So here I have a sample plan for you about body paragraph 1. As you see, I use my notes and I'll show you how using these notes, I wrote my body paragraph 1. So my topic here was the average daily sales of different food items in winter. And as you see, in winter is underlined because now I'm only focusing on the winter period of time. Important details that I had was the highest number of sales, which was hot coffee 75, second highest number of sales soup 50, next number of sales salad and ice cream, they were about 25 each, and lowest number of sales iced coffee, which was almost zero. And here I have sample body paragraph, main idea. So this is the first sentence of my body paragraph. And I started like this. Certain food items had much higher sales than others in the winter. So I only talk about winter, remember. So supporting details would look like this. Hot coffee had the highest number of sales with an average of 75 servings sold daily. The item with the second highest number of sales was soup, with an average of 50 servings sold daily. Salad and ice cream had average daily sales of 25 servings each, and iced coffee had the lowest number of sales with close to 0 servings sold daily. As you see, I use the information above, so I had my plan and I turned it into sentences. But remember, your body paragraph, the first sentence of your body paragraph has to begin with the main idea. So main idea, certain food items had much higher sales than others in the winter. So your body paragraph 2 is going to be only about the summer period of time. And now you see our body paragraph 2 sample plan, which is very similar to our previous slide. It's pretty much exactly the same. The only difference here is that you are comparing summer to winter time. And you're saying how summer is different compared to winter. So the plan is the same. However, our main idea starts a little bit differently. So as you see here, the sale numbers for each food items were different in the summer than what they were in the winter. So as you see here, I compared summer to winter. And then we have supporting details, the same. So you can use the words such as increased, decreased, and I'm going to read here for you. Iced coffee sales rose significantly to an average of 40 servings sold daily. The item with the second highest number of sales was ice cream, with an average of 35 servings sold daily. Sales of ice cream go up in the summer when the weather is hot. Hot coffee fell to daily sales of just 30 servings. Soup and salad had the lowest number of sales with a 25 servings sold daily on average. So as you see, you can write it like this, or if you want to, you can write it differently as well. So it also depends on your style and what kind of information you want to include. Remember that everyone writes differently. However, as long as you include the most important features and you're making meaningful comparison, it means you did a great job. And now we're going to talk about our last part of the essay, which is writing your conclusion. In the introduction, you made general statements about the comparison you plan to make. In the conclusion, you sum up the ideas you developed in your essay. And remember that your conclusion is a restatement of these ideas. Look at the following introduction and conclusion from a previous essay about the graphic. So as you remember, we had introduction that contained 2 sentences, and here they are. The bar graph shows how many servings of certain food items sold on average every day in 2 different seasons at the Vista Cafe. The average number of sales of each item changed with the season. So our conclusion restates this idea using different words by stating the most important change, or we also call it trend. So here we have, in general, the average daily sales of each food item changed. Depending on the season, certain items were more popular in the winter, but certain others were more popular in the summer. So as you see, our introduction conclusions are closely linked, and your conclusion basically repeats what was said in the introduction using different words and also showing the most important one, key change, key trend that happened throughout the time. And here you have the complete sample essay about the academic task 1. And this is about the graphic that we discussed earlier. And I showed you how to write introduction, body, paragraph, and conclusion for it. And I put all these paragraphs together, and now we have a complete essay. And here you have total number of words, 220. And I'm going to pause it here for you guys so you can take some time and read it. And I think you'll have a better idea and understand better how to write your academic task 1 essay. And now we are going to discuss our final step 3, which is checking and revising your essay. After you finish writing your essay, make sure to revise your writing. You need to save at least last 3 minutes to check your work to see if you have any grammatical mistakes or you use the same word over and over again. So go back and read your essay once again and make some corrections if you need to. And also keep in mind that even American speakers, native speakers, make some grammatical mistakes when they write and when they speak. So it's very important that you actually check your essay. And it's very important that you follow the official IELTS rubric in the next slide and consider if you need to revise your essay around these points. And definitely, you need to practice a lot before your upcoming exam because, as you know, you are only given 20 minutes and you'll be writing 150 words. So you have to make sure that you practice a lot and you feel prepared before your test. And now we are going to discuss our official IELTS rubric, and that will ensure that you know how to get a certain band score. You can follow this link that I provided on the slide, and it's going to take you to British Council website where you can see a very detailed rubric and how to get a certain score. But here I have a summary from the official IELTS rubric. It's kind of like a brief summary and what you need to do in order to get a high score. So first of all, you have to make sure you are addressing the task, which means your essay has a thesis statement and main ideas. Coherence means that your every body paragraph begins with the main idea, which is a topic sentence you had. We discussed it. And every body paragraph has supporting details, things like highest number, lowest number, and so on. Next, we have cohesion, which is an introduction. And your conclusion is restating your introduction. Transition words, these are words such as first of all, for example, in addition, finally, so make sure you include them. Lexical resource means that your vocabulary is not redundant, so you are not using the same words over and over again, and you are using different synonyms, or you are paraphrasing some words. Then spelling, of course, is very important, so make sure you practice very well before you take your test. And last important point is grammatical range and accuracy. So it means your sentences are different. You are not using only simple sentences or only compound sentences. You have 4 different types of sentences that we discussed: simple, compound, complex, and compound complex. And accuracy is that you feeling confident when you are using your vocabulary and tenses. So do not use grammar or vocabulary words that you're not sure about. It's better to keep it simple instead of making big grammatical mistakes. So that's what we have for our brief summary for the official IELTS rubric. And now we have a brief recap to the things we learned about academic task 1. Remember, you have only 20 minutes to complete IELTS academic task 1 and you need to write at least 150 words. Remember also that IELTS academic task 1 has 4 types of graphics and you really need to know them because that will be very beneficial for you and show your knowledge of knowing and understanding different types of charts. So we have bar chart, line graph, table chart, and pie chart. Remember to analyze the graphic for topic, description, and points for comparison. And always ask yourself WH questions in order to identify the main features of the task. And before you begin writing, it's also very important that you understand the prompt and graphic before you begin writing an actual essay. Sometimes students become very nervous and they start writing without analyzing the topic, without understanding the topic, because they start panicking that they don't have enough time. But it's better not to finish your essay than write a completely wrong essay. So guys, make sure you read your prompt carefully, you understand your graphic, and after that you begin writing. Also, it's important that you do not copy exact words, so try to paraphrase the words in the task and use different synonyms. And, as always, be positive and smile and do your best you can. However, this time we will learn about diagrams. Diagrams are different from graphics, and that is why we'll review different tips and strategies how to complete this task successfully. Before I begin explaining about process diagrams, I would like to mention that a process diagram is not as common as graphic essay on the IELTS test, but I believe it is very important that you know how to complete this type of essay and you are 100% prepared for it. Anyways, a process diagram may show the steps in a process or it may show changes in a place over time. Your main task is to describe the steps in the process or changes that occurred before and after. In the following slides, I will be explaining different tips, strategies, and steps how to complete this task successfully. In this slide, we'll have a brief overview to the academic writing task 1 about diagrams. Diagram essay looks quite similar to graphic essay, but it has different requirements to accomplish during this task. You'll be given the same amount of time, 20 minutes, to complete this task. You should spend your time in the following order. Step 1, planning your essay. It can take you about 5 minutes, but this is a very important step. So make sure to spend at least 5 minutes to read your prompt and understand your diagram. Step 2 is writing your essay. You should spend about 12 minutes to do so. And the final step 3, it's a step for revising your essay, for which you should spend at least 3 minutes. And when it comes to the length of the words for this essay, it has to be 150 words, just like previous graphic essay. And you shouldn't write less than that, but you can write more than that. So keep that in mind and make sure to write at least 150 words. And in our following slides, we'll be learning different tips, strategies, and how to successfully accomplish this task. Before you'll begin writing your diagram essay, keep in mind the following tips that can help you to succeed completing this task. Firstly, make sure that you understand all parts of the process before you start planning. Secondly, write only what you see in the diagram. Thirdly, always plan before you start writing. Next, do not add extra information that is not presented in the diagram. And finally, do not skip steps and important details. It is very important that you include every single step that is presented in the diagram. In order to receive a good score, you need to do the following things. First of all, you have to make sure you address all parts of the task and you accurately describe each step or change. Do not begin describing or writing or planning until you really understand your diagram. And the following tip for you would be to make a meaningful comparison. What it means is that you have to really understand which steps are very important. Of course, when it comes to the process, you have to describe every single step. However, when you'll do comparison before and after especially, or contrast, it's very important that you are not talking about unimportant details, but you are only writing about important and meaningful changes that happen throughout the time. Another part that is very important, it's ending your paragraph with a brief overview of the information. And again, your grammar and spelling punctuation are very important because this is writing, and these are important points for good writing. So make sure you have good grammar, you are checking your spelling, and punctuation, of course. It's very important, knowing where to put your period and comma and so on. Again, in order for you to get a better score, so make sure you have 4 different types of sentences that we discussed earlier, such as simple, compound, complex, and compound complex sentences. Having those sentences will really help you to boost your score, so try to make sure you have at least one of each. And the last one, we have the last very important tip. It's writing in your own words, so make sure you do not copy and memorize some essays, and you do write with your own words. And try not to use crazy academic words that you are not sure about, you don't feel confident about. Just use the words that you feel confident and good about. And these are important tips to remember in order to succeed completing this test. Alright guys, so this is our step 1. For step 1, you should spend about 5 minutes on planning your essay before you start writing. Planning will make sure you include the most important details from the graph. I know a lot of you don't like planning. I used to hate planning too in the past, but this is actually a very important point. I think I mentioned that at least 10 times by now. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about addressing the task and what it means. Addressing the task. So in task 1, you'll see a diagram describing a process, how to make something. So how to make something, it can be even how to make a phone, how to build a phone, or how to make coffee, or how to make a plane. So you might see different diagrams, and some of them might look a little bit crazy too, but you have to determine whether you have a process, how to do or how to make something, or you have changes that occurred at a particular place. For example, there can be a comparison about a place in 1960s compared to 1980s, and how this particular place changed during these 20 years. Sometimes it can be better, sometimes it can be worse. So that's your task, to explain what happened. And these are 2 types of diagrams you will have, and your task, addressing the task, is determining what kind of diagram you have, whether it's a process or changes that happened at a particular place. Okay guys, so here we have our sample academic task 1 diagram prompt, and as you see, we have a prompt, and I'm going to go ahead and read it for you. The diagram below shows the area around the river before and after the flood. Again, so you see this diagram and you see 2 pictures. So it says Blackstone River, and you have before and after. So you see there's some changes happened, and I feel like those were not very positive changes, but this is your task, to identify what happened and describe what happened in this diagram. So as you see, this diagram is going to be about changes. And when I'm addressing and determining the task, so I am addressing this diagram about changes. And in my body paragraph, I'll be explaining before and after, and how much this place changed. And again, you have this requirement that IELTS test is asking you: summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparison where relevant. So again, it is very similar to your graphic that we previously discussed. So you would have to do the same things: report and summarize the most important features. The following diagram looks a little bit more challenging. So, and as you guys see, this diagram doesn't have 2 pictures, but has 1 big picture that has a lot of details. So in this diagram, you can see that this is a process and how wind turbine works. But again, do not begin writing or planning without reading your prompt and analyzing your diagram. So make sure to read your prompt, which states the following. The diagram below shows a process generating electricity with a wind turbine. So here we see, and it actually clearly states, it shows a process generating electricity with a wind turbine. So you have a process and it explains how electricity is being generated with wind turbine. So you have a lot of steps from 1 to 12, and it explains step by step how things are done. And I know it can be really challenging at first, and you might be a little bit overwhelmed and scared seeing this type of diagram, but trust me, with a lot of practice you'll get better, and you just need to know how to accomplish this kind of task. All you need to do, as I mentioned previously, follow every single step. Do not skip the most important changes, and do not skip important steps in this case, and just follow the plan. And again, just like your graphic and a previous before and after about changes essay, diagram, so you have the same type of requirements. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparison where relevant. And that's it for our process kind of diagram. So this is just an example for you to see. How to determine the topic. As you remember, in task 1, you'll be asked to summarize the information on the diagram by selecting and reporting the main features. You can identify the topic by reading the title of the diagram in the task, and also making a note of both the title and the description. So the description, that can be your prompt. So make sure you read your prompt carefully. Never skip reading your title. So make sure you read and analyze your diagram before you begin planning and writing. That will help you to determine your topic and stay focused while writing your essay. Alright guys, here's an example of the diagram task essay. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to read a prompt for you, which states the following. The diagram below shows the process of producing raisins from grapes. And the requirement is always the same when it comes to task 1. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So in this case, we have this diagram, as you can take a look. So the title states raisin production. And when you read your title and prompt carefully, so you understand, it clearly states the diagram below show the process of producing raisins. So you understand that this is a process. It actually clearly states you have a process diagram and how to make raisins from grapes. And the title says raisin production. So this is your main idea. So now you determined your topic. And for you to do a little bit analysis on your writing, and understanding this whole diagram, so you can do the following. So for example, kind of take notes and write down title. Your title will be raisin production, and then description. The description is pretty much what you had in your prompt, the process of producing raisins from grapes. And again, the most important part for you before you'll begin writing or planning is to determine whether you have changes before and after, or you have a process diagram just like this one. In this slide, you can see the following example about the diagram, but this diagram is a little bit different. So as you can see, you have two pictures, and one picture is before and the next one is after. So let's go ahead and read the prompt so to get a better idea and details about this diagram. So the prompt states the following. The diagram below shows a library before and after renovations. Your noting here is, requirement is the same. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparison where relevant. So in order for you to understand this, I think this one is pretty clear. It tells you a library before and after renovation. So you see picture before and you see the following picture after, and you see the changes that happened. And also you have a title. So title states Taftsville Public Library. So it kind of gives a name for this library. Sometimes it's really great to include that too in your essay. You don't have to, but you can if you're not sure about what it means and you just doubt about it, probably you shouldn't include it. Just, not to confuse yourself too much, and make a mistake as well. All right, so here you have a couple of following notes. For example, when you take notes and you are trying to determine your topic, you can do the following. So title, Tafsville Public Library, and description, a library before and after renovation. So in your essay, you would have to describe how this library used to be in the past before, and how it has become later. Like, it expanded, it became smaller, it became bigger. So in this case, we can see that this library actually has expanded. It became much bigger than before. And that's it, guys. So we have two diagrams, two types of diagrams. The previous one, when you had a process, you had a lot of steps, from 1 to 7, from 1 to 10. It can be always different. So make sure you take a look, you analyze your diagram and understand it. And then second one, a lot of times it's before and after, and you have to explain about the changes happened throughout the time. All right, guys, and that's it for now, and we are going to move on to the next slide. In this slide, we'll review how to make notes about details. If you have a process diagram, you'll have to determine what happens at each step of a process and make sure that you understand the order in which the steps happen. For a diagram that shows a place that changes, you'll have to identify the differences between before and after pictures. And remember that most diagrams have labels that can help you identify objects and actions. Also keep in mind that diagrams may also have arrows that show you direction of movement, entering or exiting, etc. So please make sure to read every word that you have on your diagram. It can guide you and help you to complete your task. In this slide, you can see two sample outlines, and one of them for our process essay, and the other one is for before and after essay. Our first one is about raising production. As you can tell, we have 7 different steps. The most important part for you to identify how many steps you have, and you don't really need to take a lot of notes while you're making your outline. You just have to write down the most important key points, but remember the exact order, how it follows. So for example, our step 1, it's about harvesting, and the following is drying, then we have transporting to process plant, cleaning, washing, sorting, and packaging for sale. So make sure you identify your exact steps and how they follow. And then next one, we have about before and after essay. And as you can tell, I took notes a little bit differently in this case. So I have notes for before with the key points. For example, before the desk was in the middle. After that, we have reference area was behind the desk, children's room was on the right side, and adult fiction was on the left side. And as you can see, after that we have a lot of changes happen. It was in an after picture. So for example, this became closer to door, and then we have a new reading area. All children's area is divided now, and new children's area and garden are created. So when you take notes, just make sure to write down the most important key points. Again, you do not have to include every single little detail. You just have to include the most important details and identify whether you have process essay or you have essay before and after. We are going to talk about step 2. Step 2 is writing your essay. We are going to begin with introduction. Remember that introduction tells the topic of the essay. Using your notes, describe what's the topic of your essay and whether it presents steps or changes. You can simply follow this easy strategy by writing the following 2 sentences. The first sentence, describes the topic, or you can simply paraphrase 2 or 3 words from the prompt. And your second sentence summarizes what happens from the beginning until the end. It is a general statement that gives an overview of the process or changes. Just make sure not to include any examples or specific details in your introduction. In this slide, you can see 2 examples of our introduction. One of them is for before and after diagram, and the other one is for our process diagram essay. Let's take a look at the first one. The diagram is a task 1, illustrates a housing site before and after construction. The neighborhood was much busier following the construction of the bridge. Or we have the next one. The diagram in the task 1 illustrates the process of producing chocolate from cacao beans. It makes many steps from being cacao beans in the field to becoming chocolate that people can buy at the store and enjoy it. And now we are going to review important tips that can help you write a well-written essay. First of all, for the process diagram essay, write only one body paragraph. For the diagram essay that shows changes before and after, you can write 2 body paragraphs. For example, in your body paragraph 1, you can describe what happened before, and in your body paragraph 2, you can describe what happened after. In my personal opinion, I think it's easier to do this way, and it can help you to stay focused and not get confused. Another important point to remember is making sure that you use transition words. They are very important and they link ideas and make it easier for examiner to read your paper. Also remember to use passive voice in your body paragraph, especially when you're describing the process. A lot of times you don't really know who is the subject in your process diagram, and you have no idea who picked up, who harvested. So in this case, it's very useful to use your passive voice. And again, don't forget to be consistent with your tenses. If you use present tense, stick to present. If you are using past tense, stick to past. So when you have some time to review your essay, go back and double check that you are very consistent when it comes to tenses. And another useful point or tip would be using your prepositions of places, especially when you're describing locations. And this is a very useful point for before and after diagram essay. Make sure you include different prepositions such as next to, in front of, behind, and so on. And most importantly, make sure you know how to use them and you feel confident before taking your test. And again, always revise your work after finishing your essay. And now we are going to talk about our final step, step 3, which is checking and revising your essay. Here we have our revision checklist and things you need to do in order to attain a high score. First thing you need to do is addressing the task, which means your introduction has topic sentence or paraphrase a prompt and general statement, overview in other words. Second point you have to remember, it's a coherence. Coherence shows that you know the difference between process and changes, and you identify this and you explain it accordingly. Another part is a cohesion. Cohesion means you are using your transition words and your ideas are linked together. So in this case we have different sentences, and these sentences, they are connected to each other. It's not just the random sentences, but they have a very good transition. And the following point we have that you have to keep in mind, it's a lexical resource. Lexical resource means that you have a variety of vocabulary words and you're not repeating the same words over and over again. So if you keep writing people, people, people in every single sentence, it's not a good idea. So try to paraphrase it, try to use different words to describe the same idea. And again, your spelling is very important. Just make sure you practice before you take your test and do your best. And last point we have, it's a grammatical range and accuracy. So that's again about sentence variety and accuracy. I explained to you previously about that too, how you need to have 4 different types of sentences, such as simple sentence, compound, complex, and compound complex sentence. Make sure you include at least one of each, and that will really help you to get a better score. And accuracy means that you're feeling confident using some grammatical patterns and also vocabulary. Please do not use words that you're not sure about, and try not to write very long sentences. Keep it simple and clear. If when you read it you don't understand it, trust me, it's going to be very hard for examiner to understand your ideas. Keep it simple and make sure you follow this checklist. Alright guys, so now I'm going to do a little recap about the most important things you need to remember about diagram essay. First of all, remember that you have only 20 minutes to complete academic writing task 1. And you have to write at least 150 words. And I mentioned that before, you can write more, but you cannot write less than 150 words. And your task is to determine whether you have a process diagram or you have a diagram about changes. You also need to identify how many steps are presented in the process diagram. Sometimes there can be 10, sometimes there can be 7, and it just depends on your diagram. So make sure you examine your diagram carefully, analyze it, and count how many steps you have. Do not miss any steps. Every step is very important. And when it comes to your before and after essay, so your task will be to identify important changes. Do not include every single change and don't talk about every single little detail. Just focus on the most important changes that happen before and after. And let's see, so next one we have, it's this is a very important point, that you have to make sure you understand the prompt and diagram before you begin writing. A lot of times students feel very nervous. They get so nervous that they don't even read it. They just start writing by looking at the diagram. But make sure that you read your prompt. Prompt has a lot of details, a lot of important details that you can use it for your advantage, actually, when you're describing the process or when you're describing what happened before and after. So read your prompt. Don't read it just one time. Make sure you read 2 or 3 times at least. And another important point is to remember that you don't need to write a conclusion when it comes to your diagram essay. And a lot of actually students ask me about this question, and sometimes some books say that you need to write a conclusion, but you don't have to. You're not going to lose any points without your conclusion in this section, in this when you write this type of essay. And so no conclusion. You have your introduction and body paragraph, so it can be only 2 paragraphs or 3, depending how you want to write. And for a lot of times before and after, I write 2 body paragraphs, so with my conclusion I would have 3 paragraphs for this type of essay. And the last point is, do not copy exact words. Instead, paraphrase the words in the task with synonyms. So if you are going to copy exact the same words from your prompt, you are going to lose some points. So try to avoid doing so. And try to be positive before you take your test. Make sure you practice. And remember that strategies are pretty much the same, tips are pretty much the same, and all these tasks you're going to have, diagrams or graphics, they are going to be quite repetitive, but the strategies you're going to use are the same. So with a lot of practice, when you go to your test, you'll know exactly what to do. Academic writing task 2 is very different compared to our previous graphics and diagrams, and it has very different requirements. In our following slides, we'll be learning about different strategies, tips, and how to approach this type of essay. In this slide, you can see a brief overview to the writing task 2. As you can tell, writing task 2 is quite different compared to our graphics and diagrams, and you'll be given more time to complete this type of essay. You would have to write exactly 250 words, and it can be more, but again, it cannot be less than this number. You'll be given 40 minutes, and in order for you to successfully complete this type of essay, I suggest you to follow the following steps. Step 1, it's planning your essay, and for which you should spend about 10 minutes. Step 2, it's writing your essay. You should at least leave 25 minutes for this process. And the last step, it's a step 3, revising your essay, and for that you should spend at least 5 minutes. And just like before, you would have to go back, read again, and revise. But we'll discuss these steps in our following slides. Before we'll begin learning about our writing task 2, here's some important tips that you should keep in mind. First of all, try to read the task carefully and make sure you understand what it's asking for. Secondly, if you do not understand the task, please do not panic. It happens to many people. So read it again carefully 2 or 3 times, and if you still do not understand some words, try to cross them out and focus on the words you know. It can help you a lot too. A lot of times we do not understand what we are reading because we can be feeling very nervous and anxious, especially taking during the time when you are taking a test. And finally, remember that well-written essay has a good plan. So allow yourself some time to make planning notes. They can help you tremendously when you will be writing your essay. If you would like to achieve a high score on your IELTS exam, you should try to remember the following points. First of all, you need to remember to address all parts of the task. Secondly, it's using correct grammar, spelling, and punctuation. Thirdly, you should try to write incomplete sentences. Complete sentences always contain one subject and verb, at least one subject and verb. And next, it's a very important point for you, in order not to get a lower score or lose your points, make sure that you use your own words and you do not copy exact sentences from your prompt or from your task, in other words. And the most important one too, when it comes to this task, it's explaining your own opinion. As you can see, this task is very different, and I'll be explaining to you how to approach it in the following slides. But when you complete this type of task, when you write this type of essay, you need to explain your own opinion and be able to provide different examples that support your own opinion. It's not as graphics and diagrams where we did not include any opinion or outside information. So just remember that and make sure you are able to show your point of view. In the IELTS writing task 2, you'll be asked to show your opinion and be able to defend your point of view. The question in the IELTS writing task 2 can be stated in 5 different ways, or in other words, we can call it 5 different essays that you'll be asked to complete. You may be asked to, number 1, agree or disagree, and number 2, describe advantages and disadvantages about a particular topic. 3, discuss 2 points of view and give your own opinion and which one you support. The first one is a suggesting solution to problems. Sometimes you can describe 2 problems, and then in body paragraph 3, for example, give solutions for these 2 problems. And the last one, that is not very common, but sometimes it might be on your test. It's number 5, answering 2 questions. Alright guys, in this slide we'll review writing task 2 essay prompts. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes IELTS essay ask you in 5 different ways to describe or discuss a particular topic. So number 1, as you take a look, I'm going to read this prompt for you. So it states the following. Nowadays, many people have access to computers on a wide basis, and a large number of children play computer games. So this is your topic, or in other words, it's your prompt. And what are you given to do? It is the following question. What are the negative impacts of playing computer games, and what can be done to minimize the bad effects? So as you can see, it's talking about negative impacts of playing computer games and what can be done to minimize. So this type of essay, we call it problem and solution essay. So when you see this type of prompt and you know that you would have to describe problems or negative effects and how these problems can be solved. Alright, so let's move on to the second one. So here we have some people believe that it is cruel to test drugs and other new products on animals. Others believe that this sort of testing is important and necessary for improving and even saving people's lives. And your task is discuss both these views and give your own opinion. So as you see, it clearly states that you have to discuss both these views. So the first view, it's some people believe that it's cruel to test drugs and other new products on animals. And the second view is going to be the other opinion. Others believe that this sort of testing is important and necessary for improving and even saving people's lives. So as you can see, you have to discuss these both views in your essay, and then give your own opinion. So your own opinion can be either you support the first view or second view, and you would have to explain why you would support the first one or the second one and give your own example. So these are our first two essay prompts for the writing task 2. Here's our third prompt, and I'm going to read for you. Traditionally, elderly people have lived with and been cared for younger family members. In modern society, more and more elderly people are living in special homes for the elderly. And we have requirements here. So we have two questions, and I'm going to go ahead and read it. Why do you think families choose to have their elderly relatives live in special homes away from the family? Question number 1. And the second one, what do you think is the best way for modern families to care for their elderly relatives? And as you can see in this prompt, you have your topic. So this is a topic when the one involved traditionally elderly people. So they explain the problem you have, and then they're asking you to answer these specific two questions in your essay. So that means when you'll be writing your essay, your body paragraphs have to stay focused on these two questions. For example, your body paragraph 1 and 2 can be 2 reasons. Why do you think families choose to have their elderly relatives live in special homes away from the family? So you would have to write body paragraph 1 explaining one reason for this problem, and body paragraph 2 can be a second reason explaining the same problem basically. And your body paragraph 3 could be the answer for your second question. For example, here you have, what do you think is the best way for modern families to care for their elderly relatives? So be very careful when you are completing this kind of essay. A lot of times students get confused. They read the prompt and then they ignore these two questions they have, and they just focus on the words in bold. They are of course important. It's just kind of describing the problem and giving you more ideas about the topic, but what you have to do is to answer and write about what they are asking you for. So, and they are asking you to describe these two problems or like answer these two questions in your body paragraphs or in your essay in general. All right, guys. And then fourth type of essay we have, here we have a prompt. Developing an area for tourism changes life in that area in many ways. And again, so we have a topic, we have a prompt, but what they're asking me is quite different. So read it carefully. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages that tourism can bring to the lives of people who live in that area? So in the area. So in this case, do you see, you have a topic. Topic explains that when developing an area for tourism changes life of people, right? But what they're asking you is to discuss 2 points, right? Advantages and disadvantages. So your body paragraphs have to be about advantages and disadvantages of tourism and how it impacts on people's life. So yeah, this is our fourth and third type of prompts, and we are going to go ahead and discuss the last one, number 5. In this slide, you can see our final type of essay, number 5. It's about agree or disagree. The prompt states the following: making smoking illegal is the best way to protect from the harmful effects of tobacco. And your task, to what extent do you agree or disagree? So when you have this type of essay, you need to pick one point and then provide a reason for each point. I mean, which point you are choosing. For example, if you said I agree, then you would have to pick 2 or 3 reasons why you agree and then provide an example. And if you pick, for example, if you decided to say I disagree, then you'd have to do the same. You'd have to write 2 or 3 reasons why you disagree and provide an example to support your opinion. I think this is one of the most common essays, and a lot of my students and I myself had the same type of essay. And in order for you to sound more confident, I would just suggest you to pick one point, agree or disagree. Try not to mix it. You can definitely provide a counter argument if you'd like to. So a lot of times counter arguments sound, even though some people agree, I still strongly believe that. So this is a kind of a counter argument we have. If you are able to do it, great, you can go ahead and try to do that. But then again, you're not required to do it. So your job when you're writing your writing task 2 is to show that you have your opinion, you can defend your opinion, and you can support it with different examples. Just remember that it doesn't have to be, and it doesn't have to be personal. For example, maybe in real life you actually don't disagree, but you have so much more to write about agree, so I would suggest you to write about agree. Okay? Alright, so anyway, so these are our 5 types of essays for the writing task 2, and in our following slides we'll be learning how to make a plan and how to approach every single paragraph, such as introduction, body paragraph, and conclusion, and learn different important tips. And that's all. And now we are going to discuss step 1, creating an outline. In your outline, you can include the following things you see on the slide. So we have thesis statement, body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2 and 3, and also supporting details for each point. As you remember, our thesis statement explains the reader what type of essay you have. In our academic writing task 2, we have 5 different types of essays. So for example, if you have agree or disagree or problem and solutions type of essay, so you can write down in your outline problems and solutions or agree or disagree. So this will help you to stay focused and do not forget about what type of essay you are writing. So body paragraph 1 or main idea, it's our topic sentence. Our topic sentence includes the reason you are going to give. So make sure you begin every body paragraph with a specific reason for your problem, for example, or for your agree and disagree or disagree. And also supporting details, these are our examples. It doesn't have to be 3. Maybe you can have only 1 supporting detail or 2. Or if you feel like including more, so you can have 3 supporting details. And as you see, I have 3 main ideas, but maybe sometimes your body paragraphs are longer, so you can have only 2 body paragraphs. So it depends on what kind of task you have and how you write your essay, but you can write 3 or 2 body paragraphs if you wish. So this is our outline, and it is important to have our outline because this will help you to write faster and you'll not be wasting your time thinking too much what to write. So make sure you spend some time on creating your outline. And now we are going to discuss our introduction. Introduction is very challenging for a lot of students, and I'm going to explain how to write your introduction in an easier way. So, your introduction part has to contain 3 things in order to attain a good score and complete one of the requirements of the task 2. First of all, you need to describe the topic, or if it's too difficult, you can just paraphrase your prompt by replacing a couple of words with synonyms and tell the reader what the essay is about. The second thing you have to do is writing your thesis statement. As you remember, we discussed 5 different types of essays, and your thesis statement basically states what type of essay you have, and you have to make sure you include it in your introduction. So for example, if you have agree or disagree essay, you have to write in your introduction, I strongly agree or I strongly disagree, and so on. And the last part we have, it's the main ideas. The final thing that you have to do in your introduction is writing specific reasons for your thesis statement. You need to tell the reader what you agree or disagree about by providing specific reasons that you will explain in your body paragraph later. So remember, your introduction has to have 3 things: describing the topic, writing thesis statement, and mentioning 3 specific reasons, or maybe 2, you are going to discuss later in your body paragraphs. And here we have a complete introduction for our IELTS academic writing task 2. But first, let's take a look at our prompt, and then I'm going to read our introduction. The prompt states the following: in some parts of the world, the rate of divorce has increased dramatically over the past few decades. And the IELTS exam asks the following as well: explain some possible reasons for this problem and suggest some solutions. And let's take a look at our introduction now. The divorce rate is increasing in many places. I believe that the breakdown of the extended family and the stresses of work are the major causes of the situation. Fortunately, although these issues have led to a rise in the divorce rate, there are ways we can solve this problem. So this is our complete introduction, and as you see, we have 50 words. And if you remember in our previous slide, we have our main ideas. We mentioned what kind of essay we have, and also we described our topic. So that's what we needed to do in our introduction. In this slide, we have a brief explanation about previous introduction that I read to you. And here we have three things that I mentioned earlier we needed to do. For example, the first one describing the topic was the divorce rate is increasing in many places. Our thesis statement was causes and solutions. So I mentioned earlier about causes and solutions. And main ideas, it's a breakdown of extended family and the stresses of work. So remember, if you really want to attain a higher score, you have to make sure you did all three things in your introduction. And now we're going to discuss our step 2, how to write your body paragraphs. Once you have written your thesis statement and shown the reader how you plan to develop your essay, you have the basis for writing your body paragraph. You should use the main ideas and supporting details from your previous outline that we discussed earlier to write the sentences for each paragraph. Of course, you must try to use your correct grammar, spelling, and show variety in your vocabulary and sentence types. And there's some tips that you should try to keep in mind. And first of all, try to use all 4 types of sentences, such as simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence, and compound complex sentences. Also, do not use academic words if you do not know how to use them in the sentence. So try to be accurate when you're using your words, and if you're not sure if it's correct, just avoid it and keep it very simple. And always ask yourself in what tense you are writing your essay. If you're writing in the past tense, make sure everything is in the past, and if you're writing in the present tense, make sure everything is in present. So try to be consistent and keep in mind these important points. And here we have an example of the body paragraph, our complete body paragraph actually. And as you see, I have my outline and my body paragraph. So let's go ahead and read what we have. So as you see, our outline begins with a breakdown of the extended family. And I have past, my notes, family help with childcare, past family help with expenses. Now people don't have the support. And I turn these notes into my body paragraph. So let's see what we have. In my opinion, the biggest cause for divorce is a breakdown of the extended family. In the past, a family was made up of parents, grandparents, children, and other relatives. This meant that there was always somebody available to help with child care. It also meant that expenses could be shared in times of financial difficulty. These days, people do not have this kind of support from their families, and this puts more stress on marriage. So as you see, I have 77 words in one body paragraph. And of course, your body paragraph can be written a little bit differently, and this is just an example for you to see how you can turn your notes into a body paragraph. And also keep in mind, it's a good idea to use transitions. So I did not add much in here, but try to use as many transitions as possible. It will really help to link the sentences we have. And that's all we have, guys, for our body paragraph. And now we'll discuss our final paragraph of the essay, which is conclusion. Remember, a good conclusion briefly sums up the ideas you developed in your essay. It is a restatement of the thesis and main ideas you laid out in your introduction. It usually sounds a lot stronger with its opinion and more convincing than introduction. So as you remember, in our introduction, we describe the topic, provide thesis statement, and 3 main ideas, maybe 2. And here we have our example. For introduction, the divorce rate is increasing in many places. I believe that the breakdown of extended family and the stresses of work are the major causes of this situation. Fortunately, although these issues have led to a rise in the divorce rate, there are ways we can solve this problem. And as you remember, conclusion restates what we had in our introduction, and I have the following sentences. There are a lot of demands in modern lives that place stress on marriage and lead to divorce. However, people can choose to make changes to their lifestyles that can result in a better, stronger marriage. And total count of words 36 in my conclusion. But as you can see, my first sentence kind of paraphrases what I had in introduction, but also in my second sentence, I provide kind of a solution or my own opinion how this problem can be solved. So conclusion can be written differently, but it's just a restatement of your introduction using different words and kind of finalizing your ideas, what you discussed in your body paragraphs. And that's our conclusion part. And here we have our final step 3. It's a revising your essay. I provided for you a link so you can follow and understand the requirements and what you need to do in order to attain a high score. Anyway, so here we have a brief summary of the things you need to keep in mind in order to receive a high score on the writing task 2. First of all, it's addressing the task. When you address a task, you mention your thesis statement and main ideas. As you remember, your thesis statement tells what type of essay you have, and main ideas mention specific reasons that you are going to discuss in your body paragraph. Coherence. Coherence means that every body paragraph you have begins with a main idea or specific reason. Then supporting details. Every reason you provide, you have to support it with a good example or explain it and give more details about it. Next one, we have cohesion. So here we have, as you see, introduction, conclusion. So that basically means that your conclusion restates your introduction that we discussed earlier. Transition words, these are words such as first of all, secondly, in addition, also, however, finally. These are type of words you have to use in your throughout your essay, and you do not need too many of them. Just make sure you have at least 4 or 5, so that will make your essay sound so much better. And the next part is our lexical resource. For lexical resource, you have to make sure you have different vocabulary words and you're not repeating the same words over and over again. And also keep in mind spelling, it's very important. And last point is our grammatical range and accuracy. And sentence variety, that means that you have 4 different types of sentences that we discussed many times earlier. So you have to make sure you include 4 types of sentences, such as simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence, and compound complex sentence. And the last point, it's accuracy. So that means when you write your sentences or your essay, just try to be very accurate and do not use the words you're not sure about. A lot of times students like to use complicated academic words and they do not understand. Sometimes students do not understand their meaning and they still use them in order, maybe because they want to impress examiners, but this is extra, so you don't really have to do that. Just keep it simple and make sure it's easy to understand your idea. So be accurate with your tenses, be accurate with your spelling, vocabulary, things like that. So if you keep in mind these points and you try to do them in your essay, I'm sure you are going to do great while completing this task. And that's all we have for revising, and that's our final step 3. And here we have some useful words and phrases that you can use in your essay. In order to state your opinion, you can use one of these following phrases: I think, I believe, I consider. You can also say in my opinion, from my point of view. So just pick a couple of them and try to remember so you do not repeat yourself over and over again. And these are common transition words and phrases that can be useful for your essay in the future. So just try to learn some of them and try to use them when you practice over and over again, and that will be a very good practice for you, and also that will ensure you're well prepared for your writing. And now we are going to review our recap to the writing task 2 and things you should remember. Alright, so as you guys remember, you have 40 minutes to complete writing task 2 and you need to write 250 words. You can write more as you wish, if you wish, but you should not write less than that. Also, you should make sure to state your personal view. Remember, you're writing task 2 based on personal view, so you can freely write things like I think, in my opinion, I believe, I consider. So do not hesitate using such phrases. It's totally normal to use them. And that's the difference we have between writing task 2 and academic task 1, as you remember. And always make sure that you understand the prompt before starting to write, because without understanding the prompt, that means your entire essay is going to be incorrect. So please make sure you read 2 or 3 times at least before starting to write. It's very, very important. And another important point to keep in mind also, not copying exact words. Instead, paraphrase the words you have in the task with synonyms. And begin each paragraph with the main idea. So when you begin each paragraph with the main idea, you're introducing your topic and you are preparing the reader to read the entire paragraphs you have. So without knowing that, it's going to be very confusing. So keep that in mind. Always introduce your main idea in every body paragraph. All right, and also it's very good when you include supporting details. So for example, you have body paragraph 1, you begin your first sentence with the main idea. Then to explain your main idea, you including, for example relating to that main idea. And of course, always try to smile and do your best. And I think it is very important that you guys come to your test feeling rested so you can stay focused. And yeah, so keep those things in mind and practice a lot, and I'm sure you're going to do well. Strategies and tips will help you succeed in your writing section. We'll begin our today's lesson by reviewing the most common mistakes in writing. The first thing you should keep in mind is avoiding using contractions. Instead of writing I won't be home, you need to write I will not be home. So never use contractions in academic writing. The following tip that is very important to remember, that writing too few words is not that good. So if you write much less than the required word count, the examiner will reduce your score, even if your essay is really good. So you have to make sure, if you are asked to write 150 words in the academic task 1, you need to meet that requirement. And for example, for the writing task 2, you have to write 250 words as well. The following tip we have is actually the opposite of what we discussed just right now, which is writing too many words. Remember that writing too many words is not a good idea too, because as you probably know, or maybe you don't know, that examiners are paid to mark your essays on an hour basis. It means they are being paid hourly, and they will not have enough time to read all the essays. For example, if you write 350 words instead of 250 words, examiner probably won't be able to finish reading your entire essay. And that means he or she probably will skip reading your conclusion, which is a very important part of your essay. So keep in mind that you should try to avoid your contractions, write too few words, and write too many words in your academic task 1 or writing task 2. Another common mistake that some students make is having handwriting that is difficult to read. Remember that IELTS is still a handwritten exam, and the examiners will not spend time trying to understand your writing if they cannot read it. You must make sure that your handwriting is not messy and can be read quickly. Also, asking your family members and friends to read your essays could be very helpful too, and they could give you honest feedback about your handwriting style. And the following point we have, it's using informal words. For example, instead of using nice, try to use positive. Remember that academic words are very different compared to our conversational English, and try to avoid using the words that we use in daily life, such as wanna, gonna, and so on. So there are a lot of words like that that we use, but you should try to avoid using them. And the following mistake we have, common mistake, it's a giving a personal opinion. So you have to be very careful because sometimes the task actually does not ask your personal opinion. You need to read very carefully and understand if you need to provide your personal opinion or not. And the last point in our slide, on this slide, is telling stories about your personal history, friends, or family. Even though task tells you to use examples from your own experience, it does not mean that you have to describe in a lot of details about people's life or your friends' lives and maybe your personal life as well. So be very careful and remember that IELTS test just test you in overall, you test your overall knowledge to see how much you learned and how much you know about the subject. Maybe that you learned from the media or you read in the books. Alright guys, we're continuing to learn about the most common mistakes. And the first point we have on the slide is giving evidence which is too detailed or specific to a subject. This means you may be an expert in a particular or social scientific field, but the examiner probably has a different specialty. You need to make your ideas and examples accessible to the general reader. So try not to use specific terms because your examiner might not know them. So, for example, if the task topic is about money and you are an accountant, do not use specialized accounting terms. It can confuse your examiner. And the following point we have is being emotional or too dramatic when giving your opinion about a certain topic. Sometimes students feel very passionate or emotional talking about some specific topics such as animal cruelty or maybe religion or politics. So try to be less emotional talking about these type of topics and avoid using very strong words such as disgusting, detest, unacceptable, I disapprove. So these type of words are not a good idea to use during your academic writing or even speaking as well. So just remember to be very respectful and less emotional talking about such particular topics. And the last point we have on this PowerPoint slide is not following the basic structures presented in the task. So that means that examiners want to see a clear, well-structured essay that is easy to read. So they are accustomed to seeing the structures we have presented in this review. So you remember how we had our introduction, body paragraph, conclusion. So make sure you follow specific structure and you sound positive in your essay and you practice a lot before you take your test. So, and remember, if you do all these points and you follow all the task set requirements you have to complete, I'm sure that examiner will be happy to reward you with a very good band score. Now we are going to discuss our sentences. You need to use 4 types of sentences to reach a higher score. The first kind we have is a simple sentence. A simple sentence has one subject and one verb. And here we have an example. Television offers a variety of programs. In this case, we have one subject, which is television, and one verb, offers, which is a verb. And the following type of sentence we have, it's called compound sentence. A compound sentence has 2 or more simple sentences linked by the conjunctions and, or, and but. So if you guys remember before you studied in your grammar class, different fanboys we had. So these are conjunctions that we use. Here we have an example. Some people are not bothered by violent TV programs, but others avoid them. So here you see we have 2 simple sentences. The first one, some people are not bothered by violent TV programs. It's our first simple sentence. And then we have the second one, others avoid them. You cannot combine them without any conjunction, so make sure that you have one of the conjunction from fanboys. So here we have but, and also pay attention how we use a comma before our conjunction. The following one we have, it's our third type of sentence. It's a complex sentence. A complex sentence is made up of a simple sentence or independent clause and one more subordinate clause. We call it also dependent clause. So here we have the following example for this type of sentence. If we do not like a particular TV program, comma, we can easily change the channel. So the first one, it's actually called dependent clause. Dependent because it begins with if, and if you read this whole entire sentence, it depends on the second part of the sentence. It's incomplete. So for example, if we don't like a particular TV program, see, like it's not complete sentence. That's why we call it dependent clause. And the following sentence we have, for example, we can easily change the channel. So if you see the sentence, we can easily change the channel without the first part, it's still complete. That's why we call it independent clause. But remember, if you begin your sentences with if, when, after, so we have many different those words. When you begin with them, you have to make sure that you have a comma in the middle. But if you begin with a independent clause, for example, we can easily change the channel if we do not like a particular TV program. So when you have these words like if and when, even though in the middle, we do not use any comma. All right, so these are our three types of sentences. And in the following slide, we will review our last one. And here's our final type of sentence. We call it compound complex sentence. A compound complex sentence has two or more simple sentences and one or more subordinate clauses. So the following examples look like: while many people avoid watching violent TV programs, comma, others do not mind them and they watch them frequently. As you can see, we have our complex sentence combined with a compound sentence. So, and that's what we call compound complex sentence. You have a couple of independent clauses or dependent clauses, and you are combining them in one sentence. But be very careful, and then remember that you need to use your conjunction. So, for example, our first part we have: while many people avoid watching violent TV programs, comma, others do not mind them and they watch them frequently. So do you see how we use conjunction and towards the end? So just remember that and make sure you practice a lot writing such sentences before applying them to your essays. And that's all we have for 4 different types of sentences, guys. We'll continue reviewing our part 2 of the most common mistakes and things you should know by reviewing parallel structures. Parallel structures are structures that follow the same pattern. So for example, when you write with a parallel structures, your writing has a pattern that is easy to follow. It helps make your ideas easier to understand to other people. So for example, in English, we have different types of parallel sentences. And the first one we are going to review today is a subject parallels. So for example, here you see a couple of sentences we have. And the first one shows parallel. So for example, play and study are 2 ways children can use a computer. As you see, play and study, words are in bold, and they are parallel in this case. And the following one is another example of parallel sentence. Playing and studying are 2 ways children can use a computer. So here we have, instead of, for example, play and study, we have playing and studying. So we added ing ending. And the next sentence after that is not parallel, so you'll understand shortly why. And here we have playing and study are 2 things children can use a computer for. So as you see, playing and study, so the first word we have playing with ing ending, and the second one study without it. So it's not a parallel sentence in this case. So you have to make sure when you're writing sentences and you are using parallel structure, they have to be consistent. For example, playing, studying, for example, dancing and playing. So you have to make sure you are consistent and adding ing ending in both cases. So that's what we call parallel structure. The following parallel structures we're going to discuss are verbs, adjectives, and passive voice. The first one is for verbs, and we have a verb parallel structure sentence here. I reached out my hand, grabbed the glass, and noticed that my watch was gone. As you see in here, we have highlighted words, or in other words, words in bold: reached out, grabbed, and noticed. And it's going to be parallel because all these words are in the past and all of them are verbs. So that's why this is a parallel structured sentence. The following one is not a parallel one, and here we have the village has grown and becoming more prosperous. As you see, has grown, it's a perfect tense, and becoming is continuous tense. That's why the sentence is not going to be parallel structured. And the same goes for adjectives and passive voice. So for example, for adjective, as you see, we have an example. Maple syrup is a popular and tasty treat. This is parallel because popular and tasty, they are both adjectives in this case. And the following sentence, maple syrup is a popular treat and also tastes good. So as you see, popular, it's adjective, and taste, it's actually verb. So that's why this is not a parallel sentence. And for the passive voice, it actually goes the same. So the house was painted, the roof was repaired. Parallel sentence, and not parallel sentence would sound like this. The house was painted and we repaired the roof. So as you see, was painted is in the passive voice, repaired is just a past simple tense. So you have to make sure when you are writing your essay, you are very careful with your parallel structure and you double check and revise your essay carefully. Now we are going to talk about punctuation, and the first one is the most common one. It's a full stop, or we call it period in America. So you can see the sign how it looks like. And full stop or periods have three distinct uses, so we're going to discuss that. The first one, we use period to mark the end of a sentence. So for example, when you finish your idea, you need to put a period. So the cat is completely black. So I'm a teacher, period at the end, right? And then the second use is to indicate abbreviated words. So abbreviated words, so it's something like the teacher will be John Smith, and then you see how we have B and A. So B, it's a bachelor's, and then period. A, it's a arts, bachelor's of arts. So it's a teacher's degree, and we abbreviate it as a BA in this case, and we put a period after that. And the last one we have, it's to punctuate numbers and dates. So for example, all assignments should be submitted by 6 period, 15 period, 21 period. So you see, like when we have numbers or especially dates, it's very common. So we use period in that case as well. And the next punctuation we have, it's a colon. A colon can be used to indicate that a list or quotation or summary is about to follow. So for example, buy these things, colon, a bag of peanuts, comma, 2 loaves of bread, comma, and a pound of steak. So do you see how we have colon, buy these things, and then when you have a list, here we have a list of 3 items, a bag of peanuts, 2 loaves of bread, and pound of steak. So that's when we use colon in the first case. The second way of using a colon is to separate an initial sentence, in other words we call it a clause, from a second sentence, list, phrase, or quotation that supports the first in a particular way. So here we have an example that I'm going to read it for you. Writing an essay is not easy, colon. You have to do a lot of research. As you see, after writing an essay is not easy, I have a colon, and then I have the second sentence. You have to do a lot of research. These two sentences, they support each other. The second part of the sentence supports the first part of the sentence. And this is one way of using a colon. And now we're going to talk about commas. So this is one of the most common and favorite probably punctuation for some students because they use them a lot. They overuse them sometimes. And there's some students who don't like to use them at all. So we're going to discuss how to use them properly and know exactly when and how to use them. So as you know, commas signal a slight pause, but not a complete stop. And I understand why they're tricky because they have a lot of rules. So we're going to discuss a couple of them today. So the first one, you need to use commas to separate items in series. A series contains 3 or more or similar items in a row. So here we have an example. The girls like playing golf, comma, reading books, comma, and riding horses. So as you see, this is items in series. We have 3 things. Playing golf, it's 1. reading books 2, and riding horses 3. So if you have a couple of things that you want to show, like you want to list in your sentence, then you need to use your commas. For example, if you have only 2, then in that case you are not using any commas. It has to be 3 or more. And second way of using commas is to separate 2 or more adjectives that precede and modify the same noun. It's not very common, but it can happen sometimes, and you need to know it too. So here we have an example. The human eye is a complex, efficient organ. So here we have 2 adjectives, and because we have 2 adjectives, not just one, we need to use comma in between. And you have to note that you should not use commas when the last adjective in series is part of a compound noun. You can tell if one of the adjectives belongs to the noun and if you reverse the position of the adjectives. So here, for example, we have a sentence, whose red eyeglasses case is this? So as you see, eyeglass case is a compound noun, and that's why we do not use any commas in this case. So here we are going to discuss about an exception we have when not to use our commas even though we have some conjunctions. So for example, when a coordinating conjunction such as and or but, you guys remember your fanboys, connects a compound verb in a sentence, so in that case you do not add commas. So here we have an example. Jen dropped the contact lens and searched for 10 minutes but couldn't find it. So you see how we have these conjunctions and, but, and we do not use any comma. So because here we have only verbs, see, like we have searched before and, we have couldn't before but. So in that case we do not need any commas because it's not a complete independent clause, and that's why I would not use commas. So just be very careful, and then yeah, try to remember this rule. And the last way of using commas, it's when we have 2 independent clauses, or in other words, 2 simple sentences. So for example, Jen dropped the lens, comma, and she couldn't find it anywhere. So in that case, do you see how we have 2 complete sentences? Jen dropped the lens. If you see the sentence is okay by itself, that's why we call it independent clause. And the following one, she couldn't find it anywhere, so she couldn't find it anywhere, it's complete idea too, so that's why it's independent clause as well. So when you have these type of 2 complete ideas or independent clauses and you combine them with conjunctions, fanboys, then you need to put a comma before your conjunction. And yeah, so this is one of the most common rules we have for using comma. So try to remember, it's our compound sentence. The following punctuation we are going to discuss is apostrophe. Apostrophes are used in the IELTS essay for possessive forms of nouns and indefinite pronouns. So the first way we use apostrophe to show possession in a plural noun that ends with the letter S. So in this case, we do not add anything except apostrophe itself. So here we have examples. Students report, you say students in the plural form, and we only add S ending. So that means students have report, or we can say students report. The next one, the neighbor's dog, and students assignments. As you see, neighbors, students, all of them are in the plural form. That's why we only add apostrophe. The second one is quite different. So here we add an apostrophe and S, letter S, to show possession in a plural noun that does not end in S letter. So for example, women, it's a plural form, and we add apostrophe and also S letter. So women's wages, children's drawings, gives us feathers. So this is a second way of using apostrophe. And the last one is using apostrophe to show possessive forms of indefinite pronouns. So for example, we have indefinite pronouns such as everyone, someone, anybody. So in this case, we can say everyone's paper, someone's wallet, and anybody's turn. So this is a third way of using this punctuation. And our final punctuation mark is parentheses. Parentheses are used to set off information within a text or paragraph. They always come in pairs, so make sure you use them both. And typically the words inside of them provide extra information about something else in the sentence. So remember to use parentheses, especially maybe in your academic writing task 1 when you're providing data or some numbers. It can be really useful. So here we have an example how to use parentheses, and I'm going to read it for you. The total number of cars, 10. As you see, we have number 10 inside of parentheses, and this is a total number. So for example, if you have a sentence that you forgot to include the numbers in, you can actually put the numbers at the end of your sentence, but don't forget to put a period after your parentheses mark. Punctuation. And the last thing I have for you in here is a little tip that I would like to mention is that you do not need to use exclamation mark and question mark in your IELTS exam, in your academic writing task 1, I mean, and writing task 2, because remember, both of your essays are academic ones and you don't really have a hook in your writing task 2. So just try to avoid using them at all so you do not make any kind of mistakes. And that's all we have, guys, for punctuations. And I really hope this course was very helpful for you and you learned a lot about writing sections of the IELTS test.